Hey guys, this is Frozen Things Tears here, and welcome back to another video. And today, I am once again doing another movie franchise review marathon, leading up to a new installment in this big franchise that is coming out like very soon. And I'm gonna be rewatching and review all of these leading up to it. So, the upcoming movie that I'm referring to, y'all probably know it. It's Fast X, either that or Fast 10. I'm not sure which one is it specifically. I know it's written in a Roman numeral, but I mean, I feel like I'm more used to calling it Fast X, but maybe it's Fast 10, but we'll see. But whatever, yeah. Let's just talk about this movie itself. Today I'm gonna be reviewing the very first Fast and Furious movie, the Fast and the Furious. So the Fast and the Furious came out in the year 2001 and stars Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, Michelle Rodriguez, Jordana Brewster, and Ted Levine, and some other B-list actors. So basically, the plot tells a story of this LAPD cop named Brian O'Connor who must yeah, investigate this heist mission from a criminal and street racer, Dominic Toretto. But then suddenly, while on the mission, he falls in love with Dom's sister, Mia Toretto, and basically, Brian decides to, and with Brian falling in love with Mia, he gets into the life of, the gang and gets involved in street racing. The plot is kind of complicated, but I'll talk more about that later. As you all know, the Fast and Furious. Okay, sorry for my fourth, but whatever. The Fast and Furious franchise is a very popular franchise. Some of them have, two of them had made $1 billion. Furious Seven and the Fate of the Furious. And this franchise is still like ongoing to this day. Like Fast 10 or Fast X is already the last installment being split into two parts. To me personally, I find this franchise to be a guilty pleasure of mine. Yeah, sure, it's not a great franchise. These are not well-made films. These are action movies. These are franchises that just makes you want to enjoy. Let's just sit back and enjoy the action scenes. And action is everyone knows that action is my favorite genre. So I always like really enjoy seeing these Fast and Furious movies. I know there are people who still hate who are done with this franchise at this point. A lot of people are giving up on this franchise, saying that they're just milking it dry and just making too much. Because let's be real. I mean, this franchise went from regular street racing to absurd to some really absurdity with its action and has become spy a bunch of spy stuff that isn't about racing anymore. But they do at least still use cars, so you get the Fast and Furious vibes to them. But yeah, now I'm gonna be talking about the earlier era of the Fast and Furious movies, so where it's all about street racing. It's all about street racing. Going back to this one, I'm not sure how people thought about this movie back then, but I know it got mixed reviews, but it made a lot of money at the box office, so I'm sure. So yeah, this movie definitely spawned the franchise. But how's this movie on its own? I remember really liking this movie back then. I remember really liking this movie. I actually did another Fast and Furious rewatch marathon 2 weeks ago when F9 was coming out, and I decided to rewatch this one. And I remember being much more a lot. I remember being very generous to it. But in fact, I will admit, yes, I was too generous to this movie. I gave it like a 9 out of 10 back then, but on this rewatch, honestly, my thoughts on this movie went downhill from there. I mean, spiraled down. Maybe I only gave it too much credit just because it was the first film in the franchise, and I know there are some people who say that this is the best Fast and Furious film. Like my parents say this is the best one, and I can totally see why. Because maybe they since they just prefer the more simple Fast and Furious movies with simple street racing than than a big spy action blockbuster that it became, which is totally understandable. But yeah, maybe it's because I went this movie thinking I get bored with it when I rewatched this movie back in 2021, because I'm not really into the street racing type of Fast and Furious. I prefer the one with high spectacle action scenes. But yeah, now that I've gone back to this, I think I can probably give you guys my most honest thoughts on this movie. My most honest, probably my most accurate feelings for this movie. I think this movie is solid. Yeah. Um, as the first installment is in a big franchise, I think this movie is pretty good for the most part. I mean, it's really for the most part, yeah, this is a street racing movie, so this movie has some street level racing fun to it. It has low stakes to it, but yeah, the movie is really fun. I actually don't really have a lot to say about this movie, but it's just fun. Well, it has those 2000s cheese to it. Like since this came out in the early 2000s, yeah, you'd obviously see this being really cheesy, like as in like extremely cheesy. 2000s cheesiness with all the street racing and okay, sorry for that again. Cheesy action scenes and cheesy racing scenes and such a banger soundtrack. I mean, despite how cheesy it is, I really dig it. I mean, the cheesiness really depends on my taste. There are times when I prefer a movie being just cheesy and it's really hard for me to get into it. And then there are times when it's just cheesy, but it's just a lot of fun. And this movie is exactly that. It's cheesy, but I really dig it. And yeah, the music is great. The car chase sequences are great. The racing sequences are really good. Probably the car chase and action scenes are the standouts here. Despite a bit of shaky cam to it, I actually don't mind them. But yeah, the heart of the movie is definitely the characters, and I think the four main characters are really good, especially considering that I already know them very well. Know them very well. Very well. Yeah. Dom and Brian have really good chemistry. Because, as you know, they play cat and mouse with one another. They're like pretty much frenemies in the movie. They're pretty much yeah frenemies in the movie. As Brian's mission is to stop Dom, since Dom is planning to steal stuff, and Dom is actually a criminal. And so yeah, you see them like play cat and mouse on one another throughout, as they would often switch from enemies to friends. I guess you should say that. But eventually they became good friends at the end. But I think the two leading women are the standouts of this movie in my opinion. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Letty. Letty is one of my favorite Fast and Furious characters. In fact, I think she's neck and neck with Giselle Gal Gadot's character as my favorite Fast and Furious character in general. But honestly, I want to admit though, Letty was not my favorite character in this movie. I mean, yeah. When I saw the movie, I was like, yeah. But when I saw Letty, I was like, yeah, she's the best character. But to be honest, guys, actually, you know what? When I said the two ladies are the standouts, I take that back. I mean, Letty's honestly the weakest link of the four main characters. Letty is the weakest link, mainly because she's not in it that much, but she'll eventually get screened up later on, and she'll grow on me. But in this movie right here, I think she was a little bit underwhelming, which is actually a nitpick, which is actually the least of my flaws, and I'll certainly get to my flaws in a bit. But my favorite character in this movie has to go to Mia. Now Mia, now when it comes to Mia, I think this is Mia at her best in my opinion. Like out of all the Fast and Furious movies, now Mia is in my top 10 favorite Fast and Furious characters. I prefer Dom and Brian over Mia as a characters, but when it comes to this film right here, I think that this is Mia at her best. And I just really like her character, like being the most. She's just the most likable character in this movie, and and again, even though I do like her later on, I think she was just better. She was just like the best in this movie when it comes to her appearances. and I really like her chemistry with Brian. I think both Brian and Mia are a perfect couple. But even though I think Brian and no Dom and Letty are my favorite Fast and Furious couple easily. Now, time for me to get to some of my flaws with the movie. Yeah, the story's not very good in my opinion. It's just kind of confusing. Yeah, the story is kind of confusing. I mean, I get it that I mean, no, not really confusing. No, I wouldn't say it's confusing. It's just convoluted. That's the right word to use. Convoluted. I mean, I do get the gist of it. It's about Brian trying to investigate Dom's crimes, but I mean, it's kind of confusing. Like the movies, the story is kind of hard to follow. Yeah, it is confusing. Not too confusing. But I tried to pay attention, but it was more just yeah, more just hard to follow. Yeah, the story is hard to follow. And also the second act in this movie is really draggy. Like the first and third acts are really good. I really enjoyed them, but the second act kind of drags. So kind of drags to me. So yeah. So yeah, that's all for me. That's all I gotta say. So overall, yeah, the Fast and Furious is such a solid start to this big blockbuster franchises that really starts off with low stakes and street racing, and I really appreciate this movie for doing that. It's a lot of fun with great car scenes. Great music and great leading characters, except for Letty. I find Letty to be underwhelming this one. And yeah, I find Letty, and she's one of my flaws. Yeah, besides Letty getting way too little screen time. The story is hard to follow, and the yeah, how to say it? And also the second act just drag, and also like all the side characters are kind of forgettable, one dimensional. I mean, the four main characters, well, except Letty, are pretty much the only strong characters. Letty is one of the better characters, but I just wish that I saw more for this one. So yeah, I like this one overall, but I personally would not rewatch this movie again. I don't think it's a movie that's rewatchable. So yeah, I think this is one of the weaker films in the franchise. Not as good as 5 through 9. Yes, I even prefer F9 over this. I don't care what anyone else says. So yeah, with that said, I'm gonna give the Fast and the Furious a 7 out of 10. So for my review of the Fast and the Furious, yeah, I think my reviews will go downhill from there. I mean, my reviews will be my reviews will be a little more negative. No, wait, not negative, but less positive. I'm not sure if Too Fast Too Furious will be a negative review. I'll have to see for myself, but yeah, I know Tokyo Drift is gonna be a rant because I despise that movie. So yeah, what is your opinion on the Fast and Furious? Do you agree with me that it's far from one of the best Fast and Furious movies, or is this one of your favorite Fast and Furious movies? Comment down below, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and stay tuned for my review of Too Fast Too Furious. Bye guys.